Welcome to the Great Basin Prescribed Fire and Smoke Transport Briefing for Wednesday, May 14th. Currently across the Great Basin, we still have prescribed fire activity across northern areas and even over the northern half of the region. Looking at the yellow and red dots, those are the areas that we have had some small wildfires pop up, which is normal for the time of year to have small fires, but they have all stayed small and manageable. Over the last 7 to 14 days, precipitation has been focused over the eastern half of the Great Basin. Over this last week, most precipitation has been fairly light. However, over a week ago, within the last 14 days, we did have more significant precipitation for far southern Nevada and parts of southern Utah into Arizona. Otherwise, the precipitation across the remainder of the geographic area has been below normal for the last 2-week period. We currently have a storm system moving across the region, and we have had some new snowfall over especially central Idaho into western Wyoming and the higher elevations, where you are seeing snowfall reports over a foot in some areas. Much lighter snowfall accumulations down in the higher elevations, down into northern Nevada and Utah, and over into the Sierra, and even the foothills of far western Nevada. We have had some lightning activity associated with these showers, and you can see that it's fairly isolated across parts of the northern half of Nevada, into California, and then even into southwest Idaho and western Utah. Currently, our snowpack continues to diminish across the region with warmer temperatures and longer days. Even with the additional snowfall we did see recently, we'll continue to see this snowpack decline. And currently, it's well below normal for the time of year over much of Nevada into Utah and even into parts of southeast Idaho, and a little bit higher as you go up into central Idaho and far northwest Nevada. Looking at our satellite image from this morning, you can see from the loop we have low pressure moving across central areas of the Great Basin, plenty of cloud cover across especially the northern half of the region, and there is ongoing shower activity across Idaho into northern and even parts of southern Utah. Looking at the weather pattern for later today, that low continues to track eastward, keeping that moisture across the eastern half of the region with drier conditions moving into western areas of the Great Basin. Otherwise, dispersion remains good across the region. Looking at transport winds today, the winds will be strongest near and east of that area of low pressure. So across the eastern half of Nevada up into Idaho, we'll see gusts in the 20s to between 30 and 35 miles per hour in most area. Could see a small area of stronger gust in south central Idaho and far northeast Nevada. And then breezy conditions across Utah, with much lighter winds across western Nevada. Otherwise, mixing heights remain high in most regions. Temperatures will remain generally below normal across the area and furthest below normal over the eastern half near that area of low pressure where highs will only reach the 40s and 50s. Otherwise, relative humidity will remain low in the south in the single digits to low teens, otherwise above 20 or 30% further north. As we move into Thursday, this low tracks further east will still remain with some broad weak troughing across the region, so we won't see any significant warm-up, but temperatures will gradually climb closer to normal for the time of year as we get later this week, at least temporarily, and the dispersion will still remain good across the region with the exception of the far western side. On Thursday, the strongest winds will remain across Idaho, Wyoming, and into the northern Utah mountains, but most of the wind gusts will be between about 25 and 35 miles per hour. Mixing heights remain high. Temperatures continue to warm. We'll see temperatures closer to normal across western areas of Nevada, and they'll still remain below normal over northern and eastern areas. Relative humidity will start to decrease and drop into the teens across much of Nevada and southern and eastern Utah, but remain higher further north. On Friday, we'll continue again with that persistent troughing. We could have enough moisture over parts of northern and even western Nevada to have a few thunderstorms with more of the shower activity up north into Idaho. Dispersion remains generally good, a little bit weaker up north as those winds decrease. And you can see that in our transport winds. The only gusty winds remaining on Friday will be over southern and eastern Utah, and most of those gusts in the 20s, with most other areas seeing very light winds. Mixing heights remain high. Temperatures this will probably be our warmest day across most of the Great Basin, with temperatures near normal on the west side and still a little bit below normal over parts of Idaho into northern Utah. Relative humidity generally in the 20s to teens across the region and higher across Idaho and Wyoming. 3-day precipitation, you can see most of that precipitation again focused over the eastern half of the region, especially eastern Idaho into northern Utah and western Wyoming, and then much lighter precipitation on the periphery. This precipitation in the Sierra into western Nevada will likely be on Friday if we see any of those isolated thunderstorms. But it's really into the weekend where we see that next area of low pressure move in with more widespread, heavier precipitation. largely affecting the northern half to 2/3 of the region moving in on Saturday. And then it will continue to track eastward across the region on Sunday and even linger into eastern areas going into Monday. So we will have a more widespread, higher humidity, colder temperatures, and precipitation yet again. But it looks like going into next week is when we finally start to see more of a persistent ridge of high pressure moving in, bringing us warmer and drier conditions region-wide by the Tuesday-Wednesday time period. So looking at precipitation, this is for Saturday and Sunday. So over the weekend, again, widespread, heavier precipitation. Some of the areas that might see some of those lower amounts would be parts of eastern Utah, the Arizona Strip, and southern and far western Nevada. Otherwise, all other areas could see over 1/4 of an inch of precipitation, if not heavier amounts than that, especially in the higher elevations. As we move into early next week, that system again tracks eastward, so we'll see some lingering showers over the eastern half of the region, but otherwise drier conditions moving into the west. And then the 7-day total precip, clearly this is the majority of this precipitation comes over the weekend, but you can see certainly some higher amounts, over an inch or even 1.5 inches in parts of the higher elevations of northern Utah up into Idaho. So we will see some new accumulations of snowfall again in the highest elevations. Looking at the 8 to 14-day outlook, which takes us from May 21st to the 27th, showing warmer and drier conditions as that ridge really starts to set in, going into mid to late next week, and it may linger into that following week. We'll see if we have another trough coming in for late in May into early June, but probably prior to Memorial Day, looking at more warmer and drier conditions. That concludes the webcast for today. Check back tomorrow, or check back Friday for the latest updates.